and of her vicissitudes. The raccoon tour of reason is one who rose from the dumps, the mine dumps of Park City. Our very own biggest liar of 2013-2014. And in spite of all the greatest living politicians and religious leaders here in our very own state of Utah, it is my displeasure to introduce you to the biggest liar of all who would believe, Mr. David Bullock.
Well, for those of you who don't know me, my grandfather was known as the keeper of kitties. He had over 213 cats on his porch one morning. And I, following in his footsteps, had 117 cats of my own. And I was only 5 years old. You see, my grandfather taught me how to catch a cat. And he said you could never own a cat, but you could own its heart. But first, you had to capture that cat. And all of these cats were, well, they were feral cats. They were all wild cats. And there were many who wouldn't even allow me to touch them. But I captured them by using a wash tub, propped up, turned over upside down, propped up with a stick, and a string tied to the stick, and a nice, tasty treat underneath that wash tub. I would wait for the cat to go under the wash tub, and then I'd pull the stick, and boom! That was the easy part. What do you do to capture a cat that's under a wash tub? Well, you have to put your arm under there and grab that cat. And I had 117 of them that I had caught personally, and I had stolen everyone's heart with the exception of one. You see, there was one particular cat that had stolen my heart. I named her Goldie. She had the longest, most beautiful hair, pure gold. And I captured that cat, and she would not be broke. She would not be tamed. She would not love me. So my grandfather said you had to capture its heart. And so I put up with all of that cat's scratches and claws until it finally was subdued and would rest in my arms without tearing me to pieces. What I didn't know was that cat, Goldie, had a mate. He was the biggest, the meanest, the most ferocious cat, the only cat that I could not capture and tame. I had a fire truck in the sheds in the backyard, a 1913 Cadillac fire truck owned by my dad. And I would go sit on the seat of that fire truck and pretend to drive. And from out of the rafters would dive through the air this huge tomcat, landing on my back, digging its claws into me and biting me on the neck. And usually my grandfather was always with me. And he would succumb to the scratches, pulling this cat off of my back. And he knew this cat had to go. So he took this cat all the way across town and dumped it in a field. The next day, Grandpa was there by my side. I was driving the fire truck. And from out of the rafters comes this vicious cat, sinks its claws into me, growling, biting my neck and throat, and causing awful scars. And my grandfather quickly grabbed a burlap gunny sack and stuffed it in that bag, took it all the way across town, and dumped it in a field. The next day, here come that cat, jumping down out of the rafters, clawing me, digging its teeth into my neck. And my grandfather finally took a double burlap bag and he caught the cat, and he took it over to the chopping block, the chicken chopping block. He laid that cat along the chopping block, and he chopped off its head. And then he buried it in the cornfield across the street. You know, I never recovered from that experience. There I was. I was, by this time, so allergic to cats that I couldn't even get near to a mouse that had been chased by one. I'd break out in hives every time. But there I was sitting in the seat of the fire truck when I looked across the street and I saw that feral Tom, that wild cat, coming from the cornfield, carrying its head in its mouth. Never recovered from having so many cats, but that one just made me crazy.